Hello, everyone. We hope your Thursday is going well. Thanks for joining us here on THV 11 News at noon. I'm Amanda Yeager. Let's go ahead and start the afternoon with the first look at your weather forecast. We have meteorologist Corrales Ortiz joining us. Both of us were just outside enjoying that sunshine, Corrales.
Yeah, but it was still a little bit cold. Honestly, you saw me. I was actually wrapped up in a little bit of a blanket, even though I had a jacket on. But
you gotta do it.
Yeah, I gotta do it. I gotta stay warm. But yeah, it's beautiful nonetheless. Plenty of sunshine. Just a little bit cool. Let's take a look right now at the current temperatures, which we are slowly but surely warming up, but it's not going to be the warmest of days. We just reached the mid-50s here in Little Rock. To our south, we are seeing it closer towards that 60-degree mark at the moment. It's still stuck in the 40s to our north. We have light winds. It's breezy at times, though, for sure. We were standing out there. It was a bit of a breeze, and it's very dry. We have a very cool, dry air mass in place. So the combination of the cool, dry conditions, calm winds, clear skies, all that is favorable for seeing those temperatures drop pretty quickly tonight. So we are expecting freezing conditions, freeze warning in effect for the select counties in purple. So again, a chilly night, but we have warmer days in store. I'll talk more about that coming up.
This afternoon, we are learning more about the sales tax increase suggested by Little Rock Mayor Frank Scott Jr. The mayor proposed this last year, but it was suspended once the pandemic hit. So what could this penny mean for you and for the city of Little Rock? Well, Mayor Scott hopes to get the plan before voters this summer. The tax would generate an estimated $53 million for the city each year. Scott plans to focus that money on things like parks and rec, police and fire services, infrastructure, including drainage improvements, and early childhood education.
We know that, especially for young families, that's one of the greatest struggles, is figuring out how to be sure that their children are not just safe, but are really gaining those skills and that development that can really pay off later on.
If approved by voters, Little Rock would have a tax rate of 9.65%, which Mayor Scott says is still lower than many cities in the state and in the region. Accountability for spending would be overseen by a resident-led city commission. Mayor Scott hopes to get this on the ballot later this year. In the last day, more than 20,000 Arkansans received a dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. The jump comes following the governor's announcement that any Arkansan 16 and older can now get their shot. Since December, the state has given more than 1 million doses of vaccine and received more than 2 million. While that seems like a lot, more than 2/3 of Arkansas's population is still unvaccinated. Looking at the graph here on your screen, you'll see a little more than 17% of the state has now been fully vaccinated, and another 15% is waiting on their second dose. What is being called a human error led to the contamination of millions of coronavirus vaccine doses. This comes as the Biden administration is launching a new initiative to convince people to get the shots when they can. Natalie Brandt has more details from the White House.
Johnson & Johnson has delayed shipments of its vaccine from a manufacturing plant in Baltimore after a mistake spoiled about 15 million doses.
It was human error. The FDA is investigating this. That plant has not yet been fully certified by the FDA.
Millions more doses are being tested to make sure they were not contaminated. CBS News confirmed that Biden administration officials have known about the issue for weeks.
You do have checks and balances, and you see that, and that's the reason why the good news is that it did get picked up. And as I mentioned, that's the reason nothing from that plant has gone into anyone that we've administered to.
Johnson & Johnson says it's still on track to deliver its contracted 100 million doses, and it hopes to do so by the end of May. The White House is ramping up efforts to combat vaccine hesitancy, unveiling a new multi-billion-dollar campaign. The push includes a network of influencers, everyone from sports stars to local faith leaders, aimed at reaching the most vulnerable communities.
In some communities, there is a concern about getting vaccinated. Some based on mistrust, based on history, some based on just rooted in misinformation, of which there is a lot out there, and we need your help to combat that.
The White House continues to urge caution when it comes to relaxing social distancing measures. President Biden called out the Texas Rangers for opening their ballpark to full capacity, saying it's not responsible. Natalie Brand, CBS News, the White House.
New information this afternoon on Arkansas's mask mandate. Lawmakers are advancing a plan to prevent the state from ever bringing it back. All this comes after the governor lifted the statewide mandate on Tuesday. Yesterday, the Senate approved legislation that prohibits mandatory masks, and now it's sent to the House. The governor has not ruled out the possibility of reinstating the mandate, but has said it's very unlikely based on the progress we've made. Even though that statewide mandate is lifted, some cities are still requiring them, and that includes here in Little Rock. Little Rock Mayor Frank Scott Jr. made the decision based on the CDC guidelines. They asked states not to lift the mask mandate. But a restaurant owner in Little Rock says he can't afford to enforce that his customers wear masks.
If my customer walk in with a mask, it's fine. If they walk in with no mask, it's fine. I cannot refuse a business because they don't want to wear masks. It's not driven by me. So whatever my customer be comfortable with, I'm going to follow through.
Little Rock officials hope other cities across the state will follow suit and keep the mandate. The mayor will revisit his decision every 30 days. Meanwhile, the city of Pine Bluff says it will also still require face coverings in city buildings and is encouraging local businesses and organizations to do the same. Mayor Shirley Washington released a statement urging citizens to continue wearing them when they're out in public and to be respectful, saying, quote, "Someday our need for masks will end, but that day has not yet come. Until then, we must remain patient and follow health advice," end quote. We are exactly 6 months away from the Real ID deadline. Go ahead, put it in your calendar. A lot of Arkansans still have not upgraded, and that could cause problems both in the revenue office line and at the airport. So come October 1st, that's the date to put in your calendar. If you haven't done it yet, you'll need a Real ID to go through airport security or to enter a federal building. Now, let's say right now you don't have one and you forget 6 months later. What's the worst case scenario?
The greatest fear is that an individual shows up at the airport, a family shows up to go to Disney World on October 1st for the dream vacation, and the agent says, okay, let's see your real ID, and they are baffled by, what does this mean? We don't have real IDs, we just want to get on our flight.
So how do you know if you already have a real ID? Well, they have a little gold star right there in the top right corner. You're seeing it on your screen. And according to the Department of Finance and Administration, 400,000 Arkansans do already have this real ID. But 1.8 million have a regular license here in Arkansas. Officials expect a lot of them will be going to the revenue office in the next 6 months to get that real ID. And now they're preparing for even longer lines.
Doing everything we can to plan for that. We're staffing for it. Again, we have 134 offices offering it, but we can only do so much.
So here's where you can go and how you can help yourself. Make sure you bring the right paperwork with you. And this is what you need to have: your passport or birth certificate, your existing driver's license or other ID, proof of social security number, and 2 proofs of residency. You can go to r.gov/realid to take a quiz and help you identify what you need to bring with you to the revenue office. Jurors in the Derrick Chauvin trial have heard from at least a dozen witnesses so far and seen surveillance and police body cam video of George Floyd's arrest. Day 4 of that trial expected to have more emotional testimony. Michael George is outside the courthouse in Minneapolis.
Raise your right hand, please. George Floyd's girlfriend was the first to take the stand on the 4th day of the Derrick Chauvin murder trial. Courtney Ross told jurors about the day she met Floyd and how he approached her while she was crying.
He said, well, can I pray with you? I was so tired. We had been through so much, my sons and I. And this kind person just to come up to me and say, can I pray with you?
She told the jury, like many Americans, Floyd struggled with an opioid addiction to deal with back pain. During Wednesday's testimony, jurors were shown new video of Floyd being restrained by police shortly before his death. Parts of the recordings had not been seen publicly before, including comments made by Derrick Chauvin after the deadly arrest.
I'm going to control this guy because he's a sizable guy.
Yeah, and I thought he get in the car.
Looks like he's probably on something.
Chauvin was talking to witness Charles McMillan, who broke down when prosecutors showed body cam footage of Floyd being pinned to the ground.
Stop moving. Mama! Mama! Oh my God.
Throughout the trial, jurors have been listening intently and taking notes. On Wednesday, one juror had to take a break after some emotional testimony. She told the judge she'd had a stress-related reaction, felt shaky, and has had trouble sleeping. About 4 miles away, the intersection where George Floyd died remains a protest zone. Marcia Howard is one of the area's caretakers.
We all know that that trial somehow seems to be a trial of the value of a black life. No justice, no street.
She says the streets will remain closed to cars until all 4 officers charged in Floyd's death are convicted. Michael George, CBS News, Minneapolis.